The galaxy had been quiet for 300 years. The great wars were over. The treaties were signed. And humanity, the species that every other civilization feared more than death itself, had been locked away in their own solar system like dangerous animals in a cage. Ambassador. Vela Soren remembered the stories her grandmother used to tell. Stories about the Deathworlders. Stories about creatures born on a planet so violent that it killed most of its own children before they could grow. A world of earthquakes and hurricanes. A world of predators and poison. A world where the very air could burn your lungs and the water could drown you in seconds. Earth, they called it. And the beings that crawled out of that hellish place were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vela's grandmother had fought alongside humans once during the old wars. She spoke of them with a mixture of terror and respect. They did not stop, she would say. You could wound them, break their bones, take their eyes. They would keep fighting. They would keep coming. They smiled when they should have screamed. They laughed when they should have died. The Galactic Concord had made its decision 3 centuries ago. After the siege of Korath Prime, where a single battalion of human soldiers held off the combined armada of 12 species for 19 impossible days, the ruling council voted unanimously. Humanity was too dangerous. Too unpredictable. Too powerful. They were quarantined. Their colonies were dissolved. Their great fleets were ordered destroyed. Humanity was pushed back to their single solar system and told never to leave again. Sensor stations were placed around their borders. Warning beacons were activated. The message was clear. Stay away from the Deathworlders. And make sure the Deathworlders stay away from you. For 300 years, it worked. The galaxy moved on. New generations grew up never seeing a human face. The old stories became legends, then myths, then children's tales meant to frighten and entertain. Vela had believed those stories were exaggerated. She had believed that no species could really be that terrifying. She had voted, like her government, to keep the quarantine in place. Better safe than sorry. Better to let the monsters sleep. Now, she wished she had never been so foolish. The hollow came from somewhere beyond the galactic rim. No one knew exactly what they were or where they originated. They were not a species in any normal sense. They were a plague, a biomechanical nightmare that consumed everything in its path. They did not conquer worlds. They did not negotiate or demand surrender. They simply ate. Their ships were alive, grown from the flesh and metal of the civilizations they had already devoured. Their soldiers were recycled bodies, twisted and rebuilt into killing machines. Their intelligence was a hive mind, single vast consciousness that called itself the consumption, and they were unstoppable. The Concord's fleets fell in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. 300 years of military buildup, hundreds of thousands of warships, trillions of soldiers. Gone. The Hollow swept through defended systems like fire through dry grass. They adapted to every weapon, every tactic, every strategy. Nothing worked. Vela watched her homeworld burn from the bridge of her damaged diplomatic vessel. The Kirathea fleet, once the pride of their civilization, was scattered wreckage floating in the void. The planetary shields had fallen 2 hours ago. The screaming on the communication channels had stopped 15 minutes later. She was going to die here. She knew that now. Her ship was crippled, drifting. Invisible to the Hollow only because it was too small and too broken to be worth consuming, yet, in a few hours, maybe less, they would notice her. They would come, and she would become part of the consumption like everyone. Else, unless Vela's hands trembled as she activated the communication system. Her grandmother had given her something before she died. A frequency. Code. A secret that had been passed down through 3 generations with a single instruction. Use this only when all hope is lost. It was a human frequency. A channel that the Concord had tried to destroy all records of. A direct line to something that was never supposed to exist. Vela did not know if anyone would answer. She did not know if the frequency still worked after 3 centuries. She only knew that she had no other choice. She began to speak. This is Ambassador Vela Soren of the Kirathea Diplomatic Corps. I am transmitting on emergency frequency 773. I do not know if anyone can hear this. I do not know if anyone is listening. But I am begging you, please. The galaxy is dying. The Hollow have come, and we cannot stop them. Our fleets are destroyed. Our worlds are burning. Everything we've built is being consumed.
Ow.
She paused, fighting back tears. 300 years ago, my people voted to quarantine your species. We called you monsters. We called you Deathworlders. We locked you away because we were afraid of what you could do. I am not asking you to forgive us. I am not asking you to forget. I am only asking you to help. Please, if there is anyone left who remembers the old alliance, if there is anyone left who still believes in protecting life, please answer. We need the monsters now. We need the Deathworlders.
No.
She ended the transmission and slumped back in her chair. The silence was absolute. Outside her viewport, the hollow ships moved like predators circling wounded prey. She closed her eyes and waited for death. But the signal traveled. It bounced from relay station to relay station. Ancient human technology that the Concord had never found. Hidden in asteroids and dead moons across 1,000 light-years, it passed through nebulae and around black holes. It crossed the quarantine line that humanity had been forbidden to breach, and it reached the frozen darkness beyond Neptune. There, in the endless void, something vast and terrible had been sleeping. 300 warships hung motionless in the black, their hulls covered in ice, their systems powered down to almost nothing. Inside them, 50,000 human beings lay in cryogenic chambers, their hearts barely beating, their minds lost in dreamless sleep. They were the 7th Extinction Fleet, humanity's final answer to any threat that might arise. They had been hidden here when the quarantine began, placed in hibernation by leaders who refused to believe that peace would last forever. They were a contingency, a last resort, a secret that only a handful of humans had ever known. The signal reached a small relay station attached to the lead vessel. Automated systems that had been waiting for 3 centuries finally detected what they had been programmed to find. An emergency. A genuine call for help. Red lights began to blink in the darkness. Deep within the flagship, ancient computers hummed to life. Power flowed through systems that had not been active since before most current civilizations existed. Warming protocols initiated. Cryogenic pods began their slow awakening cycle. In her chamber, Admiral Kira Okonkwo's heart began to beat faster. Her frozen blood began to thaw. Her mind, trapped in centuries of nothingness, started to surface toward consciousness. Across 300 ships, 50,000 veterans of humanity's greatest generation began to wake. Soldiers who had fought the old wars. Warriors who had held the line at Koroth. Prime men and women who had been put to sleep with a single order. Wait for the call. The call had come. The Deathworlders were waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Kira Okonkwo opened her eyes and immediately wished she had not. Pain flooded through every part of her body. Her muscles screamed. Her joints felt like they were filled with broken glass. Her throat burned from the cryogenic fluid that had kept her alive for 300 years. She tried to move and found that she could not. Her body had forgotten how to obey her commands. This was normal, she remembered. The awakening process was brutal. The human body was not designed to sleep for centuries. It took time to remember how to be alive. Around her, she could hear others gasping and groaning in their pods. The sounds of 50,000 people being dragged back from the edge of death. It was not a pleasant sound. A voice spoke in her ear, calm, patient, artificial. Admiral Okonkwo, please remain still. Your vital signs are stabilizing. Motor function will return within approximately 4 minutes. I am Prometheus, the fleet's primary artificial intelligence. I have maintained the 7th Extinction Fleet during your hibernation period. There is much to discuss. Kira tried to speak, but only a harsh croak came out. She swallowed painfully and tried again. How long? 307 years, Admiral. The galaxy has changed significantly during your sleep. 300 years. Kira had known it would be a long time when she entered the pod. She had accepted that everyone she knew outside the fleet would be dead when she woke. But hearing the actual number still hit her like a physical blow. Why did you wake us? An emergency signal was received on frequency 773. The signal contained a request for assistance from a Kirathi diplomatic vessel. Admiral, the situation is critical. I recommend you come to the bridge as soon as you are able. The galaxy is facing an extinctional-level threat. By the time Kira reached the bridge, her body had mostly remembered how to function. She still ached in places she did not know could ache. But she could walk and think, and that was enough for now. Other officers were already there, gathered around the central display. She recognized most of them. Commander Joaquin Reyes, her second-in-command, who had once held a defensive position for 40 hours straight with 3 broken ribs. Captain Sarah Chen, who had piloted a damaged destroyer into an enemy flagship to save a civilian transport. Colonel Marcus Webb, whose Marines had never lost a ground, his engagement in 17 campaigns. These were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. And they all looked as terrible as she felt. Prometheus activated the main display. Star maps appeared, covered in red markers. So many red markers. The threat is designated as the Hollow, the AI explained. A biomechanical plague species of unknown origin. They consume organic and inorganic matter to fuel their expansion. They have destroyed approximately 47 inhabited worlds in the past 6 weeks. The Galactic Concord's military forces have been almost completely eliminated. The display showed battle recordings. Kira watched as Concord fleets were torn apart by organic ships that seemed to grow and adapt in real time. She watched as planets were stripped bare, their populations converted into raw material. She watched as species she had never met screamed and died in 100 different languages. The Concord, Reyes said slowly. The same Concord that locked us in our solar system? The same Concord that called us monsters? Correct, Commander? And now they want our help? Prometheus played the original signal. Vela Soren's voice filled the bridge. They all listened in silence as she begged for the Deathworlders to save her dying galaxy. When it finished, Reyes laughed. It was not a happy sound. They threw us away. They treated us like animals. They put warning beacons around our home system, like we were some kind of disease. And now that they are losing, now that their precious civilization is burning, they want us to come save them. He looked around the bridge, his eyes hard. I say we let them burn. Let them learn what it feels like to be alone. Let them understand what they did to us. We can survive without them. We have everything we need in our own system. Let the Hollow take them all. Several officers nodded in agreement. Kira could feel the anger in the room. 300 years of resentment, still fresh in minds that had only just woken up. To them, the quarantine had happened yesterday. The insult was still raw. She understood. She felt it too. The memory of being told that her people were too dangerous to exist among civilized species. The memory of watching human colonies being forcibly evacuated while alien observers made sure they did not resist. The memory of being treated like a weapon instead of a person. But she also remembered something else. Something her father had told her when she was young. The measure of a person, she said quietly, is not how they treat those who have helped them. It is how they treat those who have hurt them. The bridge went silent. They wronged us, Kira continued. That is true. They feared us and they punished us for what we might do, not for what we had done. That was unjust. But look at them now. Look at what they face. She pointed at the display at the red markers that covered half the galaxy. The Hollow are not coming just for them. If they consume the Concord, they will grow stronger. They will spread. Eventually, they will come for us too. Our children. Our grandchildren. Everyone we put in those pods to protect. She looked at Reyes, at Chen, at Webb, at all the veterans who had followed her into the darkness 3 centuries ago. We are soldiers. We swore an oath to protect life. Not just human life, all life. If we let the galaxy burn because we are angry, what does that make us? Are we the monsters they said we were? Or are we something better? The silence stretched. Then, slowly, Captain Chen nodded. The Admiral is right. We did not sleep for 300 years just to hide. We slept so we could wake up when we were needed. And we are needed now. One by one, the other officers agreed. Even Reyes, his jaw tight with old anger, finally nodded. Fine, he said. We save them. But when this is over, they will remember what we did. They will remember who came when they called. Kira smiled grimly. Yes, they will. She turned to the communication station. Yes. Open a channel. All frequencies. Broadcast to the entire galaxy. The signal went out from 300 ships, powerful enough to reach every corner of known space, and Admiral Kira Okonkwo spoke words that would be remembered for 1,000 years. This is the Terran 7th Fleet. We have received your distress call. We have seen your suffering. 300 years ago, you locked us away because you feared what we could do. Today, we will show you what we choose to do. We are coming. Hold the line. Help is on the way. Across the galaxy, beings of 100 species heard the message. They heard the calm confidence in that human voice. They heard the promise and the warning wrapped together. The Deathworlders were awake, and they were coming. In the cold darkness of space, 300 ancient warships began to move. Their engines lit up like newborn stars. Their weapon systems hummed with power that had been waiting 3 centuries to be unleashed. The 7th Extinction Fleet was going to war. Ambassador Vela Sorn had given up hope. Her ship was dead in space, drifting among the wreckage of her civilization. The hollow ships circled like predators, slowly moving closer, taking their time. They knew she had nowhere to go. She had sent her signal into the void 3 days ago. No one had answered. Of course, no one had answered. The humans were probably all dead by now, or they had heard her message and laughed at the irony of it. The species that had imprisoned them, begging for rescue, why would they come? She was preparing her final message to whatever family might still be alive somewhere in the galaxy when her sensors detected something impossible. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. For a terrible moment, she thought it was more hollow. A new wave come to finish what they had started. But then she saw the ship designs, and her heart stopped beating for 3 full seconds. They were human vessels. Ancient by galactic standards, their designs 3 centuries out of date. But they were massive and brutal-looking, covered in weapons that made Concord warships look like toys. They moved with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, spreading into attack formations, as if they owned the space they had entered. The human fleet had come. What happened next would be burned into Vela's memory forever. Hollow responded to the new arrivals the same way they responded to every threat. They adapted, reorganized, and attacked with overwhelming force. Hundreds of organic ships surged toward the human fleet, their biomechanical weapons charging, their hive mind confident in victory. They had destroyed every fleet they had ever faced. These ancient human vessels would be no different. They were very, very wrong. The human ships did not retreat. They did not form defensive positions. They did not do any of the things that Concord tactical doctrine said they should do. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the hollow swarm. They charged. Vela watched in disbelief as human warships plunged into the enemy formation, like wolves into a flock of sheep. Their weapons fired in precise, coordinated bursts, targeting specific points on the hollow ships. Not random shots meant to overwhelm shields. Surgical strikes aimed at what the humans somehow knew were neural nodes. The hollow began to die, not slowly, not gradually. They died in waves as human weapons tore through their organic hulls. The hive mind that controlled them screamed in frequencies that Vela could feel in her bones. It tried to adapt, to reorganize, to change tactics. But the humans adapted faster. A human destroyer took heavy damage, its hull torn open in 3 places. Instead of retreating, it accelerated harder, ramming itself into a hollow carrier and detonating its reactor. The explosion took out 5 enemy ships. A battleship lost its main weapons to concentrated fire. Its captain ordered the crew to load boarding torpedoes and launch them directly into the largest hollow vessel. Minutes later, Vala's sensors detected human life signs inside the enemy ship. Fighting their way toward its core, they were insane. They were magnificent. They were everything the old stories had said, and more. A small ship broke away from the human formation and approached Vala's crippled vessel. A voice came over her communication system. Calm, professional, human. Kirathi vessel, this is the Terran rescue shuttle Mercy's Hand. We are here to extract you. Please prepare for emergency boarding. 20 minutes later, Vala stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching the battle unfold on displays that were more advanced than anything she had ever seen. Admiral Kira Okonkwo stood beside her, issuing orders in a voice that never wavered. 3rd Squadron, push through on the left flank. 4th Squadron, cover their advance. Marine Team status report on the boarding action. A voice crackled back through the speakers. Admiral, this is Major Santos. We have reached the neural core. These things are ugly as sin up close, but they die just fine. Charges are set. Detonating in 30 seconds. Vala stared at the display. Human soldiers were inside a hollow ship, fighting hand-to-hand with nightmares made of flesh and metal. And they were winning. How? She whispered. How are you doing this? Okonkwo glanced at her. Doing what? All of it. The Hollow have destroyed every fleet that faced them. They adapt to every weapon. They learn from every defeat. But you are killing them. The Admiral smiled. It was not a gentle smile. They adapt to weapons. They learn from tactics. But they have never faced anything like us before. We are Deathworlders, Ambassador. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to fight before we learned to speak. Adaptation is not their special ability. It is ours. An explosion bloomed on the display. The largest hollow ship, the one the Marines had boarded, was tearing itself apart from the inside. The Hollow are predators, Okonkwo continued. They have always been the strongest thing in any room they entered. They do not know how to handle prey that fights back. They do not understand creatures that choose death over surrender. The battle was ending. The Hollow were retreating, their remaining ships fleeing toward deep space. Vala could hardly believe what she was seeing. The nightmares that had destroyed her entire civilization were running away. But the human fleet had paid a price. 37 ships were gone. Thousands of human soldiers had died in the past hour. Vala expected anger. She expected grief. She expected the humans to curse the Hollow for what they had lost. Instead, that evening, she watched them gather in the flagship's main hall for a memorial service. They stood in silence for their fallen friends. They shared stories and laughter and tears. They sang songs in a language Vala did not understand but felt in her heart anyway. They did not hate the Hollow. They did not even seem to hate the species that had imprisoned them for 3 centuries. They simply mourned their dead and prepared for the next battle. Admiral Okonkwo found Vala standing alone at the edge of the gathering. You seem confused, Ambassador. Vala shook her head slowly. I am trying to understand you. My people called you monsters. We locked you away because we thought you were too dangerous to exist among civilized species. But I have watched you fight and die to save people who wronged you. I have watched you mourn your dead with love instead of anger. I do not understand. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. We are dangerous, she said finally. That part was true. But your people made a mistake. You thought our aggression was the threat? You thought we would use our strength to conquer and destroy. You never considered the alternative, which is that we would use it to protect. That the same fire that makes us deadly in war makes us fierce in defense of those we love. She looked at Vala with old, tired eyes. We do not fight because we enjoy it. We fight because we cannot bear to watch others suffer when we have the power to stop it. Vala felt something shift inside her. 300 years of fear and misunderstanding crumbled away. She saw the humans clearly for the first time, not monsters, not Deathworlders. Just people who had been given the strength of predators and chosen to use it as guardians. She straightened her back and met the Admiral's eyes. I would like to help. Whatever is coming next, I want to fight beside you. Okonkwo studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. Welcome to the 7th Fleet, Ambassador. The real war starts now. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy like fire and dry grass. For 6 weeks, the Hollow had been unstoppable. Every fleet that faced them had been destroyed. Every world they touched had been consumed. Hope had died in the hearts of 1 trillion beings. Then the Deathworlders came and made the nightmares run. Within days, ships began arriving at the 7th Fleet's position. HFY warships that had been hiding in deep space, Morvic engineering vessels carrying the last survivors of their orbital shipyards, even Vreth-hive ships, piloted by the insectoid species that had once called humans the most disgusting creatures in the galaxy. They came because they had nowhere else to go. They came because the humans had done the impossible. They came because hope, even desperate hope, was better than waiting to die. Admiral Okonkwo accepted them all. She did not ask for apologies for the quarantine. She did not demand explanations for 3 centuries of fear and isolation. She simply assigned them positions in her fleet and put them to work. The aliens were terrified at first. They had grown up on stories of human violence, human aggression, human savagery. They expected to be treated as lesser beings, used as shields or sacrifices in the battles to come. Instead, they found something they had never expected. The humans treated them as equals. Human engineers worked side by side with Morvic technicians to repair damaged ships. Human soldiers shared meals and stories with HFY warriors. Human medics treated wounded aliens with the same care they gave their own people. Ambassador Belasorin became the bridge between worlds. She translated not just words, but cultures, helping aliens understand human behavior and helping humans understand alien fears. She watched old enemies become new allies, watched distrust slowly transform into respect. The fleet grew stronger. New tactics were developed, combining human aggression with alien technology. Morvic shields were fitted to human ships. HFY sensor systems were integrated into human targeting computers. Vreth biological compounds were used to create new weapons that could damage hollow organic hulls more effectively. For a brief moment, it seemed like they might actually win. Then the Hollow adapted. The hive mind that called itself the Consumption had been watching, learning. It had never faced defeat before, and the experience had forced it to evolve. It began studying human tactics, analyzing their patterns, predicting their movements. The counterattack came without warning. 3 star systems were hit simultaneously. The Hollow had split their forces, something they had never done before, striking at the fleet's supply lines, their communication relays, and their civilian refugees, all at once. Admiral Okonkwo was forced to divide her own forces to respond. It was a trap, Commander. Joaquin Reyes led the 3rd Battle Group to Axis Prime, the former capital of the Galactic Concord. Intelligence suggested that a large group of civilian survivors were hiding in the ruins of the orbital stations. His mission was simple: extract them and retreat. When he arrived, found something much worse than expected. The Hollow had been hiding their greatest weapon, a ship so large that it barely qualified as a ship at all. It was the size of a small moon, grown from the consumed matter of dozens of worlds. Its surface crawled with weapons and launch bays and sensor arrays. Deep within its core, the Consumption itself resided. Controlling its forces with perfect coordination, the humans called it the World Eater. Reyes understood immediately that he was going to die. His battle group of 40 ships faced a monster that could consume planets. There was no tactical solution, no clever strategy that would save them. But the civilian transports were still trying to escape. 20 ships carrying 500,000 refugees, including children born after the invasion began. If Reyes retreated, the World Eater would catch them within hours. He made his choice without hesitation. All ships formed a defensive line between the World Eater and the transports. We hold here until every civilian vessel reaches safe jump distance. His captains did not argue. They did not ask questions. They simply moved into position and prepared to fight. The battle lasted for hours. Reyes lost ships every few minutes. Human vessels threw themselves into the path of hollow weapons, buying seconds of time for the transports to accelerate. Crews ejected into escape pods only to be immediately rescued and transferred to ships that still needed hands. When a ship was too damaged to fight, it rammed the nearest enemy and detonated. Through it all, Reyes commanded from his bridge with ice in his voice and fire in his eyes. He had argued against saving the galaxy. He had wanted to let the Concorde burn. But when the moment came, he did not hesitate to give his life for alien strangers. That was what it meant to be human. The last transport. Jumped to safety with 3 minutes to spare. Reyes looked at his display and saw that he had 7 ships left. 7 ships against a world eater. He opened a channel to the fleet. Admiral Okonkwo, this is Commander Reyes. The civilians are clear. The mission is complete. He paused, looking at the monster that filled his view screen. We cannot defeat this thing. Not with what we have left. But we can hurt it. We can make it remember us. Okonkwo's voice came back, tight with emotion. Joaquin, fall back. We will find another way. No time, Admiral. If we retreat, it follows. If it follows, it catches the transports. He smiled, though no one could see it. I argued against this mission. I said we should let them burn. I was wrong. These people deserve to live. My crew agrees. We are going to buy them that chance. Static crackled on the line. Tell them a human held the line, Reyes said. Tell them we chose this. Tell them what we died for. He cut the communication and turned to his crew. All ships, ramming speed. Target the World Eater's forward sensor array. If we blind that thing, even temporarily, it gives the fleet time to regroup. 7 human ships accelerated toward certain death. Their crews did not scream or cry or beg for mercy. They sang, an old Earth song about facing impossible odds and refusing to surrender. The World Eater's weapons tore into them. Ships exploded. Lives ended. But they kept coming. 3 ships reached the target. Their reactors detonated against the World Eater's hull. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, the monster's forward sensors were destroyed. It was blind, wounded, furious, but the civilians were safe. And the galaxy now knew what the Hollow's ultimate weapon looked like. Admiral Okonkwo received the news in silence. Around her, aliens and humans alike bowed their heads for the fallen. Commander Reyes, the man who had wanted to abandon the galaxy, had given his life to save it. She looked at the tactical display. The World Eater was regrouping, repairing, preparing to move again. It would come for them eventually. It would come for everyone. Running was not an option. Hiding was not an option. The only choice was to fight. Okonkwo began to plan. If the Hollow wanted to play with monsters, she would show them what a real monster looked like. The final battle was coming. The World Eater, hung in space like a tumor on the universe. Its surface pulsed with stolen life, glowing with the energy of 47 consumed worlds. Deep within its core, the consumption waited. It had tasted human resistance. It had learned human tactics. It was ready. Admiral Kira Okonkwo stood on her bridge and looked at the monster that had killed so many of her people. 200 ships remained in her combined fleet. Humans, Kirathi, Morvik, Vreth, and a dozen other species who had joined their desperate alliance. Against them stood the greatest concentration of hollow forces ever assembled, by any rational calculation. They could not win. Okonkwo smiled. All ships, prepare for final assault. We are going inside that thing, and we are going to kill it. The aliens on her bridge exchanged nervous glances. Ambassador Vela Sorn stepped forward. Admiral, that is suicide. The World Eater's defenses are impenetrable. We would lose every ship before we reach the core. Then we lose every ship. Okonkwo turned to face her allied commanders. I am not asking anyone to die for nothing. I am asking you to die for everything. If we retreat, the Hollow grows stronger. They consume more worlds. They build more world eaters. Eventually, nothing remains. This is our one chance to cut off the head. But how? Asked a Morvic admiral. Even if we reach the core, the consumption cannot be killed by conventional weapons. It exists across a distributed network of— I know what it is, Okonkwo interrupted. I have been studying it since the day we woke up. The consumption is not just a mind. It is a process, a pattern that copies itself across all hollow biomatter. But every pattern has a source. Every network has a central node. And that node is inside the World Eater. She activated a holographic display. The World Eater appeared, its internal structure mapped by stolen data and careful observation. There, the neural core. Destroy that, and the consumption loses its ability to coordinate. Every hollow ship, every hollow soldier, becomes a mindless animal. They will turn on each other. They will tear themselves apart. Silence fell as the assembled commanders understood what she was proposing. A direct assault on the most heavily defended point in the known universe. Then, one by one, they nodded. We are with you, Vela said quietly. To the end. The fleet moved as one. The battle began in chaos. Hollow ships swarmed out of the World Eater like angry insects, meeting the Allied fleet with overwhelming force. Ships died in the first seconds. Explosions lit up the void like false stars. But the Allies did not retreat. They pushed forward, fighting for every kilometer of space. Human destroyers led the charge, their crews knowing they would not survive. Behind them came Kirathi cruisers and Morvic carriers and Vreth assault ships. All of them united in purpose for the first time in galactic history. The World Eater responded with terrible weapons. Beams of concentrated energy that could cut through battleships. Swarms of organic missiles that ate through holes. Gravity wells that crushed smaller vessels like toys. The fleet lost a third of its strength in the first hour. They kept fighting. Marine teams launched from every remaining ship, their boarding torpedoes punching through the World Eater's outer skin. 10,000 soldiers from a dozen species plunged into the nightmare interior. Fighting through corridors that were half machine and half living flesh, Ambassador Vela Soren was among them. She had never been a warrior. She had been trained in diplomacy, in negotiation, in the gentle arts of peace. But she had seen her homeworld burn. She had watched the Hollow consume everything she loved. She would not sit safely on a ship while others died for her. The Kirathi diplomat fought beside human marines, or borrowed weapons spitting fire at things that should not exist. She saw humans laugh as they killed. She saw them cry as their friends fell. She saw them never, ever stop moving forward. They reached the inner chambers. The core was close. Victory was possible. Then the consumption spoke. It did not use words. It used pressure. A psychic wave that slammed into every mind within range, filling them with images of death and despair. Soldiers screamed and fell. Even the strongest warriors dropped to their knees. But not the humans. The Deathworlders had evolved on a world that was trying to kill them. Their minds had been forged in struggle. They had faced extinction every day of their evolutionary history. A psychic attack was just another enemy. They stood up and kept fighting. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Okonkwo made her final decision. The fleet was dying. The ground teams were pinned down. The mission was failing, unless she did something impossible. Navigation. Plot a course directly into the World Eater's core chamber. Helm, maximum speed. Her crew looked at her with eyes that understood. Admiral, her helm officer said softly, that will put us directly against the consumption. We cannot survive that. I know. Okonkwo activated the ship-wide communication. All hands, this is the Admiral. Anyone who wishes to evacuate has 2 minutes to reach the escape pods. No one will think less of you. But for those who stay, know this. We are about to do what humans do best. We are going to face the darkness and we are going to spit in its eye. No one left. The flagship accelerated. The World Eater's defenders tried to stop it. The human escorts threw themselves into the line of fire, clearing a path with their deaths. The great ship plunged through the organic hull, tearing through layers of flesh and metal and nightmare. Okonkwo opened a channel to the entire galaxy. Every surviving vessel, every listening station, every refugee camp heard her voice. We are humanity. We were born on a world that tried to kill us every day of our existence. We learned to fight. We learned to endure. We learned to protect. You called us Deathworlders. You were right, but you misunderstood what that means. We do not bring death, we defy it. And today, we defy it for all of you. The flagship reached the core. Okonkwo looked at the pulsing mass of alien consciousness that had destroyed so many worlds. She looked at the crew who had chosen to die with her. She felt no fear. Only peace. Detonate the reactor. The explosion was the brightest light the galaxy had ever seen. The consumption died screaming. Its psychic network shattered. Across 1,000 light years, every hollow ship and soldier suddenly lost its guiding intelligence. They turned on each other. They tore themselves apart. They burned. The World Eater, deprived of its controlling mind, began to collapse. Marine teams that had expected to die found themselves suddenly free. They fought their way to extraction points as the great ship fell apart around them when it was over. The Allied fleet drifted among the wreckage. Less than 50 ships remained. Thousands were dead. But the Hollow were finished. They had won, in the years that followed, the galaxy rebuilt. The Galactic Concord was dissolved, replaced by a new union that welcomed humanity as founding members. Monuments were raised to the Seventh Fleet and its fallen heroes. Admiral Kira Okonkwo became a legend, her name spoken with reverence by species that had once feared her kind. But the story did not end with monuments and speeches. It ended with a young Kirathi child. Born after the war, asking her mother about the statues of the strange creatures she saw everywhere. Who are they? The child asked. Her mother smiled and knelt beside her. They are humans, she said. They are our friends. When everything was dark and we had lost all hope, they came. They fought for us. They died for us. They taught us that even the most frightening creatures can have the gentlest hearts. The child looked at the statue of a human soldier, frozen in bronze with weapon raised and eyes determined. Were they really as scary as the stories say? Her mother laughed softly. Scarier. But that is what made them so wonderful. They had all that power, all that strength, all that fury, and they chose to use it to protect people they had never met. That is not a monster, little one. That is a hero. The child nodded slowly, understanding in the way that children sometimes do. Above them, among the stars that humans had fought and died to protect, the galaxy turned peacefully through the endless night. The Deathworlders had saved them all, and they would never be forgotten.